You all loved my mindful holiday gift guide slash wish list from last week's video, so in this week's video we're doing another wish list book edition. So I really wanted to do a wish list particularly for books because one, I think books are a great gift to give or receive. Books are so special, and it also allows you to think a little bit more thoughtfully when it comes to gifting because you have to think about what the reader likes, their favorite genres, what you think that they'll be impacted by. So a little bit more thought goes into it, and I think it's really special when it comes to books. Another great thing about books is that you can take this opportunity to support a local bookstore. So if you have any local bookstores in your area, now is the perfect time to go there, support them, get all of your gifts there. And if you do not have a local bookstore in your area, you can always go to bookshop.org, which is like an online website where you can shop through local bookstores, but you can do it online. So there's so many opportunities to make an impact with your purchases here, and I just think it's a incredibly mindful and thoughtful thing overall. So that's why we're doing a wish list specifically for books in this video, and I'm going to be going through my wish list, and it's not an exhaustive wish list, don't you worry. That would be so long if I went through every single book that I've wanted in my entire life. I am just going to be going through some recent books that I have added onto my wish list in the past month or so. There's 13 books total here, so I'm just gonna go through each of them. I'll tell you why they're on my wish list, and then I'll give you a brief synopsis. The first title is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I know I'm late to the game on this, but I just started reading The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, and I absolutely love it so far. I'm about 150 pages in, so I still have a ways to go, but loving it. I'm not a big lit-fic fan, but something compelled me to start reading this one finally, and I'm absolutely loving the experience. So many people in my life, so many people over the past 10 years have told me they love Donna Tartt, but they have also said that they really hate Donna Tartt. Like, there are some books that people absolutely love and some books that they absolutely hate. Some people will love The Goldfinch and then hate A Secret History, or vice versa. So I'm very interested to see what ends up happening in my case. I'm loving The Goldfinch so far. I think people tend to love-hate both of them, vice versa, because they compare them so much together, but we'll see. I'm just very intrigued. The Secret History is a little bit more dark academia vibe. It follows like a group of misfits in a New England school and something to do with their teacher. It sounds very interesting. It is very different from The Goldfinch. I think that's the biggest discrepancy. People need to stop comparing the two because then their expectations don't ever get met. The next title on my list is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. I don't read memoirs, but this memoir is calling out to me. It is one of the most popular memoirs I have ever seen in my life, and I think I heard that, I don't know if this is confirmed, but I think it is one of the best-selling memoirs ever, which is wild and super cool to see, particularly with a young person. So I'm very intrigued. I want to know what is going on. I've also seen a lot of interviews with Jennette McCurdy where she speaks on her book, and she's so well spoken. She speaks so eloquently, she speaks so intelligently, so I can just imagine what the writing is going to be like, and I need to read it for myself. I know it's a memoir, of course, so it's a lot about her life, but it also is centric to her relationship with her mother, of course. And I have always been a fan of Jennette McCurdy. I've been a fan of iCarly as well. So there's just so many reasons for me to finally pick this up and read it. I do absolutely love the cover too. Shout out to the cover. It gives me vintage vibes. I don't know. It's like vintage cozy mystery vibes, even though it has nothing to do with that. Okay, next on my list is Out There Screaming by Jordan Peele. Well, it's not by Jordan Peele. It's compiled by Jordan Peele. It is an anthology of horror fiction by Black writers. So big points to that. I love horror anthologies, and I love that I can read horror anthologies by diverse authors. So I absolutely am intrigued by that. I am also a big fan of Jordan Peele. You all know I'm a big spooky lover. You all know that I love the spookies. So I have to pick up a book that is, you know, compiled by Jordan Peele, of course. The stories are very horror slash social commentary. So if you think about anything Jordan Peele has done in the horror world, it's very much that. So big fan of that. I think Jordan Peele has done nothing but masterpieces in the horror movie world so far, so I just know that this is going to be incredible as well. Another book in the horror world is Monstrilio. This one is by Gerardo Córdova. I hope I said that correctly. This is another diverse horror read, and the reason this one got onto my radar is because I have been seeing it a lot on social media. Now, horror tends to not be big on social media. Horror is not like one of those huge booming kind of genres in the reading world unless it's a really, really good book or it's done by somebody extremely popular such as Jordan Peele, right? But this one came out of nowhere, and then suddenly all I have been seeing is Monstrilio, Monstrilio, Monstrilio. So I need to know what is going on in this story. I did read the synopsis and it reminds me of like a lot of indie horror movies that I have seen, but essentially it is about a mother who kind of takes a body part or an organ from her dying son, and she kind of nurtures the organ and it becomes sentient and it becomes a monster of its own, right? So it's going to be very interesting to read that. I don't typically read books or read stories like that. I tend to watch them on the screen. So I cannot wait. I cannot wait to read something like this. It sounds so good. And again, love diverse horror. Okay, the next one on my list is kind of, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of inching off my list, but I still have it here. It is The Creative Act by Bre Graham. The Creative Act has been wildly, wildly popular. I have been seeing every single person reading this book. It'll show up in their videos, what have you. It's extremely popular, and I tend to be a little bit skeptical when it comes to extremely popular books. I know a lot of books on this list are extremely popular, but, and I'm not saying that because I want to be like super cool and unique and like, oh, I don't read popular books. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that sometimes books will get extremely popular just because they see other people posting about it and not necessarily because of the content of it. It's just trendy to have it, so you end up just having it, and it's not necessarily a great book. And I'm not saying that it's not a great book. It's by Rubin, so I'm assuming that it is also a great book, which is why it's still on my list. But I did go to the bookstore and I flipped through it really quickly, and it kind of looks segmented, if that makes sense. It kind of reminds me of like a book of inspirational quotes, and I know it's not that, but it kind of gave me that vibe, which made me a little bit skeptical. I would much prefer to read like a full-length piece by Rubin as opposed to just segments from Rubin, if that makes sense. So I'm a little skeptical, but it's still on my list because I have heard incredible things, and I will say the cover is incredible. It's made out of like a really nice high quality linen texture, so I think it's a really great coffee table book as well. Very, very giftable. And what it's essentially about is it gives me the Artist's Way vibes. So it's not really a self-help book in a sense. It's sort of like an informational, educational masterclass on how to be creative or how to fuel your existing creativity, which is something that is very, very important to me right now, as you all know if you've seen past videos of recent. So it's still intriguing, it's still interesting. I would love to hear thoughts from Bre Graham, so it's still on my list. Okay, the next one on my list is a cookbook. It's called Green Kitchen, Quick and Slow, and it's a vegetarian book, so of course I can quickly veganize the recipes in this cookbook. But what I really love about this cookbook is, one, the cover is stunning. I love to have cookbooks on display in my kitchen, so it's one that's definitely easy to display because of how pretty it is. But I also like that it's vegetarian, but I also like that it kind of puts an emphasis on quick weeknight meals but slow weekend meals. And I think that's 100% my style of cooking. I definitely want to get something done a little bit quicker during the week because the week is busier, of course, but on the weekends I really like to slowly savor the experience. As you all know, I'm big into doing slower, mindful practices, and cooking is definitely one of those things, but not necessarily all of the time. So I love that this book has a nice balance of that. and I'm so interested into the recipes because I have been seeing this book pop up a lot, so I can imagine that the recipes are starting to get more and more popular. So excited to see what that's all about. The next book is The Dangers of Smoking in Bed. This one is by Mariana Enriquez, and I don't think this is an anthology, but I do think it's a collection of stories specifically by Mariana, and Mariana seems to be a very well acclaimed author, and it's got very weird, disturbing, dark / social commentary vibes, which is going to be a common thing on this list, I'm starting to notice. But the story is a lot about like the female experience, female rage, but it's also dark and disturbing. Like there's some weird stuff going on and it's kind of vague. I think I can give you like a quick line from the description here, but it says, populated by unruly teenagers, crooked witches, homeless ghosts, and hungry women, they walk the uneasy line between urban realism and horror. So it's a collection of stories that kind of touch on all of those things and more. Again, horror / social commentary. So I love that. I love that it's also coming from a diverse author. So we're gonna get some really interesting, intriguing, and good stories out of that, and I'm just a big fan of that overall. I will also say I've been seeing it a lot on social media, so that's what also got me to kind of like, okay, I'm finally gonna add this to my list, and the cover is incredible too. Okay, the next one is Normal Women. This one is by Ainslie Hogarth. I hope I'm saying that right. Another one that got me with the cover. I'm definitely a book cover judger. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I picked this one up because of that, but also it's another dark horror / social commentary kind of story, and I'm just a big fan of that. I'm starting to notice, so it had to get onto my list. It's about two women, and I believe one woman is like an entrepreneurial, like she's a successful businesswoman, and I think a child goes missing, like the child of that woman goes missing, and there's like a weird mystery behind all of that. Let me see if I can give you a line that is actually a little bit more concise. In this darkly comic story about how we value female labor and don't, a new mother becomes embroiled in danger when her friend, a controversial entrepreneur, goes missing. Okay, so no baby's going missing. The entrepreneur is going missing, but it has social commentary vibes, it has spooky mystery vibes, but it's not too much of one or the other. And I think that's interesting. Okay, the next book on the list is Bunny by Mona Awad, another book that has been so popular online that it's to a point of being skeptical. But I think somebody in my life, I can't remember who it is, but somebody messaged me and told me that they read this and they actually really liked it. It was actually pretty darn disturbing, and they recommended it to me because I'm a fan of horror. So that is all that I needed for me to finally add it onto my list. But again, another dark horror / social commentary type of story. And I just have to say, one of the lines on the description, it says, "The vegetarian meets Heathers," which is so wild. Those two books are those two stories are so wildly different, and I have read The Vegetarian, and I went with The Vegetarian, like when I first read it, it went from being confusing to being weird to being like, I don't like this, to I'm absolutely obsessed with this. So if it has any comparisons to The Vegetarian, I'm 100% down. I just know that I'm gonna be in for a ride. And to tell you a little bit more specifically about the story, it says that it is a down the rabbit hole tale of loneliness and belonging, friendship and desire, and the fantastic and terrible power of the imagination. So there's a lot going on, and I think a lot of people are vague when they review this book because they don't want to spoil what's just so disturbing about it, so we'll have to read it and find out. Okay, the next book is How to Be Both by Ali Smith. This book got me 100% or 99.9% because of the cover. I love the cover. I'm really big into like artsy museum / exhibit covers. Like this cover could be framed kind of cover, and I'm a little bit judgy when it comes to cover art. I think cover art is very important. People say don't judge a book by its cover, but 100% I think you should. Covers are important, and as someone who works in the publishing world, I think covers should be taken very seriously. And this cover is incredible. I would buy this book just for the sake of having the cover because it's so pretty. I don't know, it's a work of art. Literally, it's a work of art. And I think the story is about art. It says that it has a Renaissance artist of the 1460s, there's a child of the 1960s, tales of love, injustice, structure gets playful, knowing gets mysterious, fictional gets real. It's a wild ride, just like Bunny. And it also reminds me of The Goldfinch, and I'm really enjoying The Goldfinch right now, so I have a feeling that I'm really gonna enjoy this as well. The next book is The Hidden Life of Trees. There are various authors for this one because it's a nonfiction title, but it's about the hidden life of trees. I have been seeing a lot of like well-loved nature content creators talk about this book, and of those said content creators, I really value the opinion of a lot of those content creators, so immediately went onto my wish list when I saw them reading it. And I read a nature book over the summer. It was a nice cohesive book where I was able to read it from cover to cover and thoroughly enjoy it. Not only was it informational and educational, but it was interesting, it was insightful, and it really grabbed me in. I wanted to talk about it constantly, and that's a really great nature book done well. Because typically I would go into nature books and kind of flip through it and look at the segments. That's kind of the way that I read nature books, but the one that I read over the summer, which I can link in down below, I can't remember the title right now, but that one was really good, and I have been seeing the same praise for The Hidden Life of Trees. It's about trees and the connection that they have and the way that they communicate and the things that they're kind of secretly doing when we're just walking amongst them. So I'm very interested into learning more about nature in general and particularly about trees. Trees are absolutely fascinating if you think about it. Okay, the next one is Table for Two. This one is by Bre Graham. I hope I'm saying that right. It's another cookbook, and like it says in the title, Table for Two, it's a cookbook that has recipes for two, and of course I am a family of two. There's two people that I'm cooking for every single day here, so I really appreciate a cookbook that has recipes for two people. It also has sections in there that kind of just show the appreciation and love associated with food. I definitely show my love and appreciation through food, so I can appreciate a book that kind of highlights that. And some of the sections talk about takeout, talk about pizza and stuff like that. So I am very excited to see the way that this book compiles just love and more than just recipes. You know what I mean? There's some more substance to it, and I appreciate that so much. I'm also very excited for recipes for two because I tend to find recipes and then I have to quarter them sometimes. We'll see how this goes. I hope I get it. It's not, I'm saying it like as if I definitely have it, but I don't. But the last book is another book with a stunning art exhibit cover, A Certain Hunger. This one is by Chelsea Summers. The cover got me, y'all. It's another 99.9% cover buy. I haven't bought it, but it will be a cover buy. It will mostly be a cover buy because I did also read the synopsis, and the synopsis is absolutely fascinating, but it's an incredible cover, and it has this very interesting story, another dark horror / social commentary kind of story where it talks about foodieism. It talks about like social classist kind of elitism. There's like settings in New York, which I always appreciate. I know that's very common, but as someone who lived in New York and when people can write about New York really well, I appreciate that so much. Goldfinch. But yeah, it just has a lot of that, but it also has some weird cannibalistic kind of vibes happening as well. So like there's like this foodie elite world, and then there's New York, and then there's cannibalism. It just sounds absolutely fascinating. This one is probably on the upper end of my wish list because it just sounds like so many things that I'm interested in, right? Like I talked about horror, I talked about social commentary, I talked about food in all of the books that I talked about on this list, and this one has a fusion of all of those things plus an incredible cover. So this might be like the top one on my list actually, but it sounds absolutely fascinating. And that is all. Those are all of my books. I will link every single book, the bookshop.org link, in my description. I talk about bookshop.org like I'm sponsored by them, but I don't even think they do sponsorships. I'm just a big fan of bookshop.org because the impact that they're doing and the accessibility that they're creating around book buying is incredible. I will link those in the description box if you're interested in picking up any of these books for your loved ones or for yourself. Add them to your wish list. Let me know if you end up adding them to your wish list, or you've read any of these books and you have some reviews for me. No spoilers, but let me know in the comments. I would be so appreciative of your thoughts. But that is all for this week's video. Happy mindful shopping. This might be my last wish list slash gift guide kind of video, because as we head into December, I definitely want to go back into goal setting videos and things like that, so I can prep you all for the new year. I can't believe we're heading into the new year. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I will talk to you in next week's video.